Hello, everyone. Lauren Wild here. We're going to do a really quick, short discussion about the full moon in Gemini that is tonight at 11:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So first of all, I apologize for the scenery behind me. You guys probably wouldn't notice, but my ninth house Virgo with Mars and Venus does not approve. But my life has been crazy with owning a brick and mortar store and also an online school and three kids during the holidays. It's been like pretty nuts. So thanks for bearing with me. I want to talk about the full moon in Gemini. That is our last full moon of 2022. 2022 really has gone out with a bang. So why wouldn't we have a banging full moon in Gemini to close us out? So what makes this full moon really powerful and intense is the fact that it is at 16 degrees of Gemini. And so what that means is that the sun is at 16 degrees of Sagittarius, shining a light on and illuminating the moon at 16 degrees of Gemini, which is in an exact conjunction with Mars retrograde at 16 degrees of Gemini. So let's talk about what that means. Depending on where Gemini is in your natal housing system, what we call your natal chart, it will tell you a lot about where the illumination is coming up. So what we first have to discuss is that a full moon is the culmination of something. It is like the big awareness, the big seeing of what we've been working on for the last 6 months since the new moon was in Gemini this past summer. So we've had 6 months to work towards something. Wherever Gemini is in your chart is where that is coming to fruition. And like big decisions are going to be made because Gemini rules choices, it being the twins. So we've got big choices that need to be made, dualities that need to be directed in one direction under this full moon's influence. Now, what makes it more intense is the fact that we've got Mars retrograde, which is bringing up a lot of that energy that we had even in like mid-autumn, September, early October, when Mars was in the degrees of about 16 to 18 degrees of Gemini. So we want to pay attention to what was happening during that period of time because now Mars is going over it for the second time. We'll get the third time sometime in early January, like midwinter to early spring, and that will be the third time's the charm, right? So we want to pay attention to what is coming up from underneath the surface. The moon rules our emotions, it rules the subconscious mind, while Gemini rules the chitta or the conscious mind, as we call it in Vedic astrology or in yoga. The chitta is the conscious mind, the things that we're thinking about, which is what Gemini rules, as it is a Mercury ruled sign. And so with Mars being retrograde in the site of Gemini, it's like frustration, irritation, agitation, irritability, anger, like close to the surface kind of anger too. It's like we're aware of it. It's the things that we're frustrated about, like coming up to the surface to be heard, to come out of the mouth because of it being in Gemini. So this could bring a lot of stuff up to the conscious mind and to the actual like speaking. This could also come through text messages, emails, phone calls, because of the Gemini influence, also through the internet. There could be a lot of frustration that people are voicing, that's just like talking about what's on their mind. Now what's interesting is that the sun, which is really the thing we want to pay attention to, because the sun is shining a light on what we really need to be focused on. The moon is like what's underneath that, right? Like what's the unconscious thing that needs to be brought up to the surface. So what needs to be brought up to the surface is some sort of culmination that we've been working around for the last 6 months. So that would have been around May 30th, I think, was the new moon in Gemini. and something coming up that needs to be spoken about, resolved, and decisions need to be made. Okay. Now, with the sun being in Sagittarius, the sun in Sagittarius, is ninth house energy. It's Jupiterian. It wants us to think more philosophical. It wants us to think more spiritual. It wants us to set our sights higher and use what is called the super conscious mind. Things like, let's meditate about that. Let's get creative. How can we channel this into something that is more positive, is what Sagittarius would say. However, Sagittarius and Gemini aren't always known, for keeping their mouths shut. So this could be an interesting lunation for sure. Could be, a lot of trickster energy coming up. A lot of sag mouth, people just saying whatever they want to say without the consequences, and just kind of the mantra of like, well, you shouldn't be so sensitive. Um, However, Neptune just stationed direct this past weekend. Everybody's feeling sensitive. It's the last full moon of this year. 2022 has just proven to be like, you know, the stepsister to 2020. They just keep mounting, and so it's really a powerful lunation, however, to do some channeling. All right. And so anger is a healthy emotion. Anger is an emotion that alerts us that something is not in alignment, something is not right, something is not balanced, something is not equal. Something is not just, okay, for us. And so anger is not about emotion. It's the way in which we deal with it, right? And so it's a lot of repressed stuff coming up through the lens of Gemini retrograde. It could easily be projection, right? Versus taking responsibility for our own emotions, for our own actions in something, is to completely project something on somebody else, or to get caught in the midst of something like gossip or hearsay. It's like not really following down the truth all the way through, okay? And so it can cause a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of miscommunications, and cause a lot of breakups and breakdowns for sure. And so we want to just kind of slow down. The conscious way to work with this energy is space. It is like learning to have some space between the self and other. Very Gemini energy. It wants to be very connected at the hip. It is the zodiac sign of the twins, which is, very, very close even through birth, and then eventually separates through birth and wants to kind of find that other part of itself and the higher astrology part of that myth. And so, what we're really looking for is a parts of ourselves. So, things like IFS, internal family systems, could be a very helpful practice to use during this period of time, to really locate the parts of yourself that maybe feel irritated or aggravated, or need a lot of tender love and care during this time period. There's a great book called Tender Parts, that is all about IFS. And then No Bad Parts Always is a great one by Richard Schwartz, and that is the father of IFS, that modern psychotherapy tool that's very effective. Um, with the sun in Sagittarius, it also is like meditate, breathe, get into a higher mind. Let the lower mind just kind of like release it, get into more of that like Buddhist Zen yogic, like let it go, non-attachment, focus on, your awareness that this is all just like a breath, that like life is just a breath, let it pass by. A great book to read during this period of time that I've been recommending is called Polishing the Mirror by Ram Dass. And it's a book on shadow work. And instead of projecting all over everybody else, we take that energy into ourselves and we do the yoga of self work, right? Where we are trying to figure out like what parts we're clinging on to, and what we're really looking for, which is ourself, right? The other thing is to recognize that during this full moon, it is also in a trine, about a 4-degree orb to Saturn, in Aquarius. And so this feels helpful. Trines are always harmonious, they're always helpful. And they say, look for the structural pieces, look for, the responsibility taking in terms of a group or friendships, wherever Aquarius is in your chart. But also, it is about, taking responsibility for your part in a situation. And reparations are such a huge part of this. I personally believe. I know we're not in Libra, but we're in Gemini. But just being able to take that responsibility, which is what Saturn would say, and to do the work, to do the reparations, to take responsibility, to be mature about it, and to heal it. The other thing is to focus your frustration and your irritability and a project that you haven't completed yet, something that needs some bones behind it, that needs you to put some energy into it. Channel all of that frustration, irritability, any of that into something constructive is what a trine to Saturn would say. Really put your energy behind something that you want to come into completion under this full moon lunation, right? And so those are like my major pieces of focus in terms of ritual. Use a yellow candle, and this is good release work, magic that is around creativity, clarity of mind would be helpful. But really and truly recognizing that I think the personal thing that you could do that is the most effective is to channel this energy that is like frustrated into higher mind, a new higher mind in terms of spirituality, letting go of the chitta, the lower mind, letting it pass by, being, stepping into that higher self. Forgiving does not mean that you have to be in a relationship with that person, place, or thing, but just, the contract is complete. Let it be done in a good way. Also the other thing is to channel any anxious or irritable energy into a project that needs your completion. This full moon is an intense one. I don't feel like it's even, fully come into its fruition, which it hasn't. It'll be at 11:08 p.m. tonight, but I think that it's a powerful lunation to really highlight the parts of ourselves that we are frustrated and angry about, because those emotions can be alchemized into empowerment. There's no reason to be ashamed about being angry or frustrated. It shows us where there is some sort of imbalance or injustice in our life that needs our awareness and action behind it. And that's what Mars is going to bring. It's just doing it in a way that doesn't necessarily burn down our lives unless that's what we are consciously choosing to do, because it can have a lot of impulsivity behind it because of Mars, because of Gemini, and because of Sagittarius. So watch your mouth, watch your intentions, take some deep breaths, take some space, work on yourself. That Mars retrograde takes us internal, and start looking, at the mirror, polishing the mirror of self, looking to other to inform self for deeper healing. I hope that this has been helpful for you guys. Happy full moon in Gemini. If you're interested in learning more about these lunations or how they could be affecting you, or are you ready to have your first natal chart reading or your second, third, fourth natal chart reading, there is links in the description box below to get connected to me. You can find me at laurenwild.com, and I will see you guys for the new moon in Capricorn. See ya. Bye.